Blake Lively just broke her silence and the internet lost it. She stayed quiet for a long time, and then she didn't. 2 days after losing 10 of her 13 claims, including the sexual harassment allegation that started all of this, Blake Lively posted a statement on her Instagram story. Not through a PR team's press release buried in trade media, directly, on her own page, in her own words. And the response from certain corners of the internet was immediate. She was called unhinged. She was called scary. One subreddit declared she was, quote, crashing out, which is exactly what her statement warned would happen. Welcome to the Marquee Report, where we break down Hollywood's biggest stories with the detail they actually deserve. Today we're reading Blake Lively's full statement, unpacking what her legal team actually argued, and looking at why the online reaction to this case might be the most important part of the story. Quick recap for anyone just joining us. We covered the full ruling in our last video, so go watch that first if you want the complete legal picture. Here's the short version. On April 3rd, U.S. District Judge Louis Lyman dismissed 10 of Blake Lively's 13 claims against Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios. The biggest loss was her sexual harassment claim, the one the New York Times article was built around, the one that launched this entire legal war in December 2024. The reason it was dismissed wasn't because the judge said it didn't happen. He explicitly noted the harassment allegations were, in his words, far from baseless. The dismissal came down to a legal technicality. Lively was classified as an independent contractor, and not an employee, and the shoot took place in New Jersey, which meant California's workplace harassment protections didn't apply. 3 claims survived and are headed to trial on May 18th. Retaliation, aiding and abetting retaliation, and breach of contract. Now let's talk about what happened next. Before Lively said a word publicly, Baldoni's lead attorney Brian Friedman gave a statement to TMZ celebrating the ruling. The statement called the decision a validation of what the defense had argued from day one, that none of the defendants had engaged in sexual harassment of Blake Lively. Friedman framed it as the truth finally being confirmed by the court. It was a victory lap. Loud, public, and timed perfectly for the news cycle. But here's what that statement left out, and what Lively's legal team made sure to highlight immediately after. The same week as the ruling, Friedman himself had been sanctioned by the court. The judge found that he had made claims in the ongoing litigation that were legally frivolous and factually baseless. That sanction is on the public record at Court Listener. Friedman was out there celebrating a court ruling while himself being penalized by that same court in the same case. That's the context Lively's team wanted you to have before reading her response. Lively posted a statement from her attorney Mike Gottlieb first, before her own words. And it's worth understanding what Gottlieb actually argued, because it reframes the dismissal entirely. At his core point, the dismissal of the harassment claims was not a finding that the harassment didn't happen. The court found, in his words, in painstaking detail, that Lively provided sufficient evidence of 4 specific things. First, that she privately raised concerns about on-set behavior by Baldoni and producer Jamie Heath that she and others found disturbing. Second, that she reasonably and in good faith believed that behavior amounted to unlawful sexual harassment. Third, that Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfarer Studios understood her complaints were sexual harassment allegations. And fourth, this is the key one, that in response they crossed a line and took steps that harmed her reputation and career. That fourth point is exactly what the retaliation claim is built on. Gottlieb described it as the beating heart of the case. And the harassment claims were dismissed on jurisdictional and contractor status grounds, not because the evidence wasn't there. That's a meaningful distinction, and it's one that a lot of coverage of this ruling has glossed over entirely. Then came the statement from Lively herself, and this is where it gets interesting, because she didn't just respond to the ruling. She responded to the entire narrative around the case. She opened by saying she was grateful the core of her case would reach a jury in May, and that she wanted to tell her story fully, not just for herself, but for others who don't have the platform or resources to speak up. She mentioned people she has known and loved, and people she will never know. Then she said something that stopped a lot of people mid-scroll. The last thing she wanted in her life was a lawsuit. And she went on to say she brought the case specifically because of what she called pervasive retaliation, Retaliation she says she faced and continues to face for privately and professionally asking for a safe working environment. And then she made a direct appeal to the audience watching this unfold. Don't be distracted by the digital soap opera. She called the constant framing of this lawsuit as celebrity drama not only irresponsible, but deliberate, designed in her words to keep people from seeing themselves in her story. She connected her situation to a broader pattern: digital manipulation, online abuse, retaliation as a tool used against people who speak up. She described the physical pain of what she called digital violence as very real and called it abuse. And she said it exists not just in celebrity news cycles, but in communities and schools. She said digital manipulation has been publicly boasted about as untraceable. She closed by referencing everyone who has fought these kinds of battles before her, those whose names we know and most we don't, and signed off with a dragon emoji. Now let's talk about what happened after she posted that. On a subreddit that leans heavily in Baldoni's favor, the immediate response was to declare she was crashing out. Users called her scary, unhinged. They framed a carefully worded legal and personal statement as evidence of a breakdown. This is worth sitting with for a moment. A woman posts a measured, legally precise statement about workplace retaliation and digital manipulation. And the response is to call her mentally unstable for posting it. And her statement predicted exactly this. She called it by design. She said the celebrity drama framing is a mechanism, not just a media instinct. And within hours of her posting, that mechanism was running exactly as she described. Whether you believe her account of what happened on that set or not, and this case is genuinely contested, with significant evidence on both sides, the pattern she described in that statement is real and documented. The field of reputation management has a long paper trail of exactly the kind of coordinated narrative control she is alleging. The unsealed documents in this case include communications from PR firms discussing strategy around her public image. That is not in dispute. What is in dispute is whether that activity crossed a legal line, and that is what a jury will decide on May 18th. And here's the bigger picture. This case was never just about two people who made a movie together and ended up in a legal dispute. It has always been about something larger. What happens when someone with power and resources decides to fight back against institutional pressure, and what tools get deployed to stop them? Lively may win at trial, she may lose. The jury may find the retaliation claims compelling, or they may not. That is what courts are for. But the statement she posted this week made one thing clear. She is not going to let this be packaged as entertainment. She is going to keep pointing at the machinery behind the coverage, the online pylons, the framing. Whether people listen is a different question. May 18th is 6 weeks away. And based on everything that's already happened in this case, the trial itself is going to be unlike anything Hollywood has seen in years. This has been the Marquee Report. If you want serious, detailed coverage of Hollywood's biggest legal and industry stories, no fluff, no gossip framing, subscribe and hit the bell. We cover what actually matters the way it deserves to be covered. See you on the next one.